Making tourism work for farmers, Tourism Linkages Network exploring ways to increase local agricultural input. Weekend Business Report starts right now. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Keneal Gale. Thanks so much for joining us this week. Chairman of the Tourism Linkages Network, Adam Stewart, is encouraging more hoteliers operating in Jamaica to form linkages with local farmers as one way to have more stakeholders benefit from the island's tourism product. We'll have more on that in a bit, but right now, here are some of the top stories BATV News brought you this week. The Jamaica Stock Exchange, JSE, is outperforming the world again. That's according to Bloomberg News. The well-respected financial news outlet notes that the JSE has had the largest percentage of growth over the past 5 years, compared to about 90 other index markets around the world. Javon Keys has the details.
Globally recognized business and finance news source Bloomberg has placed the Jamaica Stock Exchange amongst the world's best performing equities markets for the last 5 years. In a news story published Wednesday, Bloomberg said that the JSE has amassed the largest percentage of growth over the period, growing by 233%. That's compared to some 90 other equities markets worldwide. This 5-year rally or continued growth of 233% sees the JSE leading by leaps and bounds. The closest to the local stock exchange was Vietnam's Ho Chi Minh Stock Index, which grew by 86%. That's followed by a 73% rally in the S&P 500 index. For 2018, the JSE's benchmark index has gained 19% in dollar terms and is expected to continue to grow as a result of the monetary reforms which have been taking place, such as reduced interest rates and reduced borrowing as part of the current IMF program.
Meanwhile, Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clarke says Bloomberg News' declaration that the Jamaica Stock Exchange was the best performing financial market in the world is testament to the country's stabilized and energetic economy. Jamila Maitland has that story.
Earlier this week, Bloomberg News ranked the Jamaica Stock Exchange amongst the world's best performing equities markets for the last 5 years. That's compared to some 90 other equities markets worldwide. The respected financial news outlet says the Jamaica Stock Exchange has amassed the largest percentage of growth over the period, growing by 233%. Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clarke says that's independent evidence of Jamaica's economic performance.
That's not measured in Jamaican dollars or in Trinidadian dollars, measured in hard currency, the best performing stock market in the world over the last 5 years. There's no better investment, i.e., in the world over the last 5 years than investing in the real economy of Jamaica.
The minister says the government seeks to bring more stability to the economy. Earlier this week, Parliament approved an increase in the country's supplementary budget.
Capital expenditure has doubled over the last 2 years, from $32 billion in 2015-2016 to $60 billion this year. And after the supplementary budget that was passed by Parliament on Tuesday, to $65 billion this year, a doubling of capital expenditure. And it's through capital expenditure that we're able to improve service delivery to the public and improve quality of life.
He described several impacts of the government's economic reform program.
The impact of the economic reform program has been broad-based. It has improved poverty, it has improved employment, it has improved access to mortgages, it has improved inflation, which all affect, it has improved public service delivery, and it has improved social support. Those are things that affect people, that affect individuals on the ground and improve quality of life.
After being shelved for some 14 years, the construction of the Maxfield Park Housing Development Project will begin next March. Some 210 housing solutions are slated to be constructed in the community. Prime Minister Andrew Holness broke ground for the project earlier this week. Here's more.
The project, which has an $850 million price tag, is expected to be completed by 2021. Prime Minister Andrew Holness, who has the responsibility for the National Housing Trust, described the groundbreaking ceremony as long overdue.
The project was conceived over a decade ago, as was pointed out by the Leader of the Opposition. It is a sad commentary on the process of our bureaucracy that it is taking so long to have it come to this point. But we are here and we are grateful and we are thankful.
Opposition leader and Member of Parliament for the constituency in which the project is located, Dr. Peter Phillips, underlined the importance of policy continuity. This, he said, will result in the development of Maxfield Park as one of Jamaica's ideal communities.
It's part of an integrated community development, which includes a sporting complex, upgraded schools, health center, worship facilities, and community facilities. And so it's been a long time. I think I should say that it's reflective of the fact that the bureaucracy takes a long time, too long, and oftentimes is insensitive to the plight of communities such as these. But I'm very happy.
Meanwhile, Chairman of the National Housing Trust, Lennox Channel, explained that the development will not only feature houses, but businesses as well.
There are 194 housing solutions, and there are some shop units which will have houses on top of them and so on, which makes it 210 solutions. But in terms of families, you can put multiples, maybe 3, 4, onto that 210 into the 600 to 800 range. That would benefit.
Moving on now, Tourism Linkages Network Chairman Adam Stewart wants more hotel chains operating in Jamaica to follow what the Sandals Group has done and source most of their agricultural produce right here in Jamaica. WBR sat down with Adam Stewart recently. Giving more farmers the opportunity to access markets in local hotels is a major mandate for the Tourism Linkages Network. One way it's trying to achieve this is through the creation of an app that links farmers with purchasers in hotels.
We've created technology for the farmers that goes into real time. You know, here's a hotel that needs to buy. Here's a farmer in St. Elizabeth. The issue that we've always had is connectivity. So we created the AgriLinks Exchange, working with RADA, where the farmer can literally put information live to say, I have 500 pounds of watermelon, and here's my quality. And the purchaser in the hotel can say, I know where to get that now.
There were some skeptics.
People said to me as a chairman, you know, farmers can't read and write. And I said to them, create the digital platform, and if they can't read or write, their children or their cousins, I said, make one economic exchange take place, and you watch how fast people find a way to put it together. And it has been phenomenal. The technology was written by a Jamaican entrepreneur, genius Jamaican entrepreneur. So we said, here's what we need. He said, leave it to me. I couldn't believe it. When he came back, demoed it, state of the art.
He argues that finding simple ways to connect farmers with local hoteliers is the best way to stop leakages.
You know, the hotels don't sleep. They're 24/7, 365. If we can't find a way to make it simplistic to get that connectivity, then people buy things from Miami, you know, or other parts of the world. And that consumption, you know, we call it leakage. That would be leakage when they go to Miami instead of buying it from St. Elizabeth when we have our farmers right here.
Adam Stewart says there's a great untapped opportunity for local farmers to supply hotels with berries. He notes that currently hotels import a significant amount of strawberries and blueberries that can be substituted with locally grown ones.
Literally all of our berry consumption in the hotel side of the importation in Jamaica is coming in from overseas. So under our agricultural working group, we have created and done the diligence around saying, this is a real opportunity. This is one that we actually need to force. And we need to find young farmers and young entrepreneurs coming out of school, as well as those who are doing it, and say, here is the opportunity. How can we help fund it? How do we get people in business so that we don't have a 98 or 99% leakage of people buying their berries coming via Miami from South America, but right here in Jamaica? Lady Wholeness has been, you know, an inspiration at taking this very seriously as a part of her remit. And the council pulled in 5 young farmers and have put all the framework together to get this going. But you know, it's agriculture. It takes a minute to put it together. It takes a minute to perfect it, but it's already starting to work. And then the idea is every year you close that gap of leakage of people buying overseas because we have a competitive product at a competitive price, homegrown.
The Sandals Group CEO says that some of the larger hoteliers operating in Jamaica are only giving lip service and promises to incorporate more local produce in their hotels.
What I will say that as a hotelier to other colleague hoteliers that I'm disappointed in is I don't think enough of our hoteliers make a conscious effort. And not all of them. The local indigenous Jamaican hoteliers, the family-run hotels in the Grill and St. Mary, I think they do. You know, Jason Hensel down on the south coast with Jake's, he does a superb job of working with the farmers. He really does. I think some of the larger, what you would call the foreign investors, I think we get a lot of lip service about how much they're trying. And I can tell you, Sandals Resorts, 80% of all of our consumption comes locally. There are certain things that are made that will never be made in Jamaica. Grey Goose vodka is never going to be made in Jamaica. So you're always going to have to import elements of it. 98% of the agricultural products that we use come from 2,000 farmers in Jamaica that we work with on a continuous basis. Sandals runs the highest standards of any all-inclusive chain anywhere in the Caribbean. And if it works for Sandals, it can work for anyone else. The quality is there, the consistency is there. It does take more coordination than clicking a button on your computer and ordering it from Miami. You know, Miami is convenient, but this is what linkage is about.
He says Jamaica has a unique opportunity through tourism to invest in farming to help grow the agriculture sector.
We get a lot more lip service than we deserve. I think Jamaica has the opportunity. In other islands, they have nothing to grow. Many of the other islands, they can't compete, or they grow bananas, you know, or they have 1 or 2 crops. Jamaica has the works, and we've come a long, long way. Things like, you know, cherry tomatoes that are hydroponically grown that you couldn't get years ago, you can get them here. Specialty products, zucchinis, etc. Entrepreneurs have gone into business, and if you seek it out and you make a conscious effort, and it's not lip service, you will find that literally your entire basket of what you need to run an international hotel today can be consistently found in Jamaica, and the farmers deserve more credit.
Company news comes up next. Then later, riding the tsunami wave, we'll tell you how a massive ship ended up in the middle of a small fishing village. Stay with us. Welcome back to Weekend Business Report. Here's this week's company news.
Supreme Ventures Racing and Entertainment Limited has opened 10 new off-track betting OTB outlets on the eastern side of the island. This is in line with the company's commitment to expand the reach of its horse racing product and boost revenue. The new OTBs became operational in time for the start of the Supreme Ventures Jamaica 2-year-old series last weekend. The locations include Highgate in the Otter Bay in St. Mary, Yallis in St. Thomas, and Hopewell in Hanover. Portland Tony in Portland has also received its first location for some years. 5 locations have also been opened in Kingston. Wisynco is reporting more than $24 billion in revenues for the first half of 2018. That's a 15% increase from the $21 billion it recorded for the similar period in 2017. The company's financial statements reveal that the manufacturing and distribution giant amassed some $3 million more in revenue than the similar period last year. Revenues at the end of June stood at $24.5 billion. Gross profits went up to over $9 billion from last year's $7 billion. However, net profits went down by 6% to close at $2.3 billion from last year's $2.4 billion. Express Catering, operators of a number of brands including Margaritaville and the globally renowned coffee chain Starbucks, saw revenue at the end of the 2017-2018 financial year coming in at $15.7 million. That's a 10% increase over the previous year. This was mainly driven by the increase in passenger counts at the Sangster International Airport in Montego Bay, which would have impacted the Margaritaville and Starbucks airport locations. For the 2018-2019 financial year, Express Catering Limited expects to see incremental increase in revenue from the Starbucks franchise and its other existing offerings. They're also expecting to benefit from the projected increase in passenger flows for 2019 at the Sangster International Airport.
Let's now take a look at the closing numbers from the major stock markets around the world. When we come back, more of the week's top stories from the BATV News Desk, so stay with us. Welcome back to Weekend Business Report. Former Managing Director at NESOL, Carolyn Warren, appeared before Parliament's Public Administration and Appropriations Committee, PAAC, on Wednesday to answer questions about a controversial contract awarded to Peak Energy Solutions. More in this report.
Members of the PAAC questioned NESOL's former managing director, Carolyn Warren, about the fact that the organization under her leadership awarded a contract to Lenny Gordon as consultant for the installation of solar panels while he was still managing director at the Nationwide News Network. That was in April 2017. 3 months later, a company called Peak Energy Solutions was established to carry out the installation work. PAAC members became concerned after it was revealed that Lenny Gordon, the consultant, was the principal owner of the company that received the contract to carry out the installation. There was no formal contract, and the fact that Lenny Gordon was her former boss when she worked at Nationwide News Network raised eyebrows.
Mr. Gordon
I recommended Mr. Gordon.
was contracted to do scoping and developmental works in relation to the solar systems to be provided through the CAP project. Having done that, he formed a company.
After that, yes, I think like 3 months after.
Right, and the company was formed to now execute solar system.
Yes, throughout Jamaica. Yeah,
Yes.
not just for NESOL.
Yes.
The contracts, which were totaled for more than $21 million for 19 sites, were to be completed by Peak Energy Solutions.
So far for Peak has been paid 12.5 million or thereabout. I think they're owed 9-point-something million.
So they're above the threshold.
Oh, hold on. They're not above the threshold because they were done extension by extension. Separate sites.
So
we did not get everything from USF at one time.
BATV News checked the National Contracts Commission of Jamaica to find out whether Peak Energy Solutions was registered, a mandatory process to qualify for government contracts, but it was not. PAAC members demanded the procurement documents, citing that the contract surpassed the $2 million amount, which required a procurement process. Mrs. Warren sought to explain why procurement wasn't done.
Your question of why Peak and Peak alone? When Mr. Gordon did the first 3, Universal Service Fund was totally satisfied with what they got. During that time, when one was done, at the same time we were trying to find other persons. We were not successful, so Mr. Gordon just ended up doing those.
Mr. Chairman, please, that response is totally unsatisfactory. And I tell you, what was the process used to engage Mr. Gordon and subsequently Peak Energy? Directly. Mr. Gordon came on board anew in April. What was the process of engaging Mr. Gordon, who by the records subsequently become the dominant provider of these services to these many 19 sites?
Biochemist Professor Errol Morrison says the government's policy against sugary drinks in schools is a good initiative. However, he's taking issue with the message that's being sold in the media. Sashana Small tells us more.
The sugary drinks that are now being attacked, excellent approach, but needs some tweaking to get the message right, scientifically sound.
But how should they be tweaked? Well, Professor Morrison says sugary drinks are being branded as the sole cause of certain non-communicable diseases, and this is not true.
What we want to get across to the people, and I know what the media is trying to say, but it is coming across that sugary drinks cause diabetes. For the last 100 years and more, that question has been discussed, debated, investigated, and studied. And the answer is no.
However, he did acknowledge that sugary drinks cause obesity, but he emphasized that this happens when it's consumed in excess and not accompanied by any physical activity.
Young children in the more well-to-do neighborhood, they are being dropped at the gate from the cars. They have had breakfast, they are assured of, other meals for the day. For them, that bag juice is unnecessary and could be problematic. I want these messages to say that. But you can't knock a sugary drink in a child going to school hungry. That sugary drink, 50% of it, remember that, 50% of it goes to help the brain to function.
Meanwhile, clinical nutritionist at the University of the West Indies, Susan Suarez, says the key to understanding these ads is to pay more attention to the wording.
The ads that have been going out, if you really look at the wording carefully, it says sugary drinks causes obesity, and that's from the excess energy that you get. That, as Professor Morrison said, if you take in more than your body is using, then it will contribute to obesity. But if you look at the ad, we say that obesity can lead to illnesses like diabetes, NCDs, things like tooth decay in children.
In the meantime, Professor Morrison says this policy change should also be accompanied by mandatory physical activities in schools.
Palace Resorts is expanding its operations in Jamaica with a $250 million investment. The luxury hotel brand says it'll be building 750 new rooms. The investment will also include upgrades to the town of Ocho Rios. Here's more.
Palace Resorts has been operating the luxury all-inclusive Moon Palace Jamaica Grand since 2014. They're now investing in their second major hotel in Jamaica following the purchase of rooms on the beach in Ocho Rios. And the Mexican hotel chain says it's also committed to redeveloping the town of Ocho Rios. They've partnered with the Urban Development Corporation UDC to create a master plan for the town. This will include a pier with a multitude of dining options, a renovated public beach, a boardwalk, snack bars, as well as a sand-based soccer field and an open aircraft market featuring local artisan items. The company says the construction of the new property and the expansion and development project in Ocho Rios will create an additional 3,500 jobs for Jamaicans. Managing Director of Moon Palace Jamaica, Cliff Reeder, says the planned redevelopment of Ocho Rios will elevate its presence and foster tourism and economic growth.
When we come back, an exclusive look at the damage left behind by the massive tsunami in Indonesia. More WBR after this break. Welcome back to Weekend Business Report. A ship weighing more than 1,200 tons rode the waves of Indonesia's tsunami. It eventually plowed into the fishing village of Wani. Access to Wani has been difficult and aid has not reached them yet.
A look down the street that a ship came up. She surfed the tsunami, more than 1,200 tons riding the wave and ploughing into the fishing village of Wani. 13 crew were on board at the time, and one of them described how after feeling the ship shudder during the earthquake, they saw water retreat from the shoreline. Knowing that meant a tsunami, they ran to the bridge, the highest point on the ship. Then they could only look down in horror as villagers were swamped by the violent surge of water. They heard screams, but were powerless to help. Since Friday, access to Wani has been difficult, so nothing in the way of aid has reached here yet, and people feel let down. Whatever help is at hand in the disaster zone, it always seems to be destined for somewhere else. Eventually that will change, and fishing villages like this will need a lot of assistance. After such a colossal assault by the sea, they will take a long time to right themselves. Of all the vessels washed ashore here, it is perhaps this small one that is the best indicator of the sheer power of the tsunami. You see, when disaster struck, this boat was lying on the seabed, where it sank 3 years ago. Quite something. John Irvine, ITV News, Wani, Indonesia.
And that's all the time we have for this week. On behalf of the entire Weekend Business Report team, I'm Keneal. See you next time.